ora, and welcome to PauseCast. It is Thursday, the 30th of March, 2017. I am Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Mark Hanna, I use he, him. Welcome.
It's good to have you back. Mark,
Yeah.
you did a video game this time, right?
Haven't you forgotten something? You normally do the date.
I did do the date.
Am I, did I black out for 10 seconds or
I
something?
think you might have, dude. I
Wow,
did
that's
the
a
date.
great-
I didn't forget
That's a
for
great start.
once.
Because I'm like, my brain didn't do its prime number factorization episode number. Okay, wow. Sorry.
Yeah, you're all good. You're all good. You're all good. Maybe I didn't. Oh, you know what?
Yeah?
I didn't say the episode number is what I did. This is episode 35 of PauseCast. And we're actually I almost had it. But I did enough different that I literally changing one word in that intro threw me off so bad I forgot to say the episode number. Holy shit. Bad start.
It's alright, you messed with my head too by my brain not automatically doing, 7 and 5.
Numbers. Oh my god. Mark, you did
Anyway.
you did a video game though, right? That's what we're here for.
So, yes, I played probably 5 or 6 hours of Horizon over this last week, which is pretty cool. So I've been making progress more in its story, which has continued to be lots of fun. But I'm still sticking with the one game, still going through that, and still probably a way more to go. But now that I've cleared up most of the side quest stuff, I wonder if I might make faster progress in the story, because I've spent something like 42 hours in that game now. I don't normally it's a rare game that'll hold my attention for that long. Some of them will go to 100 plus hours, but normally we'll get under 10, I find. So that's a mark of success already, right? Not that I haven't already raved about how much I enjoy this game. But yeah, that's all that I've played this week. Though I did also play in a new D&D campaign starting last night that my little brother's running, which was really fun. Not a video game, but it's a different game. Because normally I run the game on Wednesdays, but one of the players is having to work late a lot lately, so we thought, let's start doing another one for when they're not available. What about you?
I did some video games. I also did some real cool stuff this week. We're going to talk about more towards the end of the show here. I did some cool stuff. I played some cool video games. I've continued to play the very, very good Titanfall 2. Kingdom Hearts, the first Kingdom Hearts. I have if I had to give an impression of Kingdom Hearts, by the way, my impression would be I have literally never been more conflicted about a video game. It's one of those.
Yeah.
I guess I'll talk about this to kick us off here.
Okay.
I had this problem too with Final Fantasy X to start out with. I know this wasn't a problem you had, so you just can't relate. But I know that I definitely had a problem with Final Fantasy X in the beginning, in that its moment-to-moment gameplay was fucking terrible, if I had to surmise that very quickly. Which I kind of do, because that's the format of the show. It was not good. The moment-to-moment writing was not at all compelling or interesting to me, and it was starting to throw me off of the game right at the beginning. And eventually enough began to happen in this overarching story that Final Fantasy X has, where it became much, much, much more interesting to actually pay attention to. And I became way more invested in the overarching plot, even though Final Fantasy X's moment-to-moment was still maybe not my favorite thing in the world. And I think I've run into a similar situation here with Kingdom Hearts. One is it's that there's some there's some pretty cool underlying story stuff in this first game. There's not like a lot, but it's enough to keep me interested in it. But I'm also having to contest that against moment to moment like play, which is just actively fucking terrible. There's nightmare swimming mechanics, somewhat repetitive combat. My AI companions keep eating all my fucking items, so when I actually get to a boss fight, it then proves super difficult for a while because I don't have, like, I can't support myself because my AI companions just keep eating all my fucking items.
So they heal themselves
Yeah,
out of your
they'll,
inventory or
like, you
something?
have to equip items to them as well as to
Hmm.
yourself.
Yeah.
And you can only equip, like, one at a time, obviously.
Okay.
Or, well, one of one item in each slot, and then when they use it, they burn that slot. It doesn't automatically like regenerate. Which, I mean, fortunately, that doesn't happen because otherwise, literally all of my items would just be gone. But
So they only consume the items that you give them,
yeah, they'll
right?
only consume the items that I give them. The problem is when I do in fact give them items, they are just consumed so rapidly that I then have to like replenish them for another big fight or whatever, and then all of them are gone again. Even if it wasn't a fight that was like super duper hard, it was enough to lose all of those items. And again, just like some really awful movement mechanics as well are making this game really, really hard for me
So
to like.
so when you're saying things like nightmare swimming mechanics, awful movement mechanics, what is it about them that's bad? Because I haven't played this game. I don't know what the movement or anything is like.
I guess
What is it
it
that you're
mostly just
finding
feels
awkward?
awkward. The camera feels like really, really awkward. There's not a lot of like verticality that you can do with it. I'm in another world where I'm in like a ship and it's like a somewhat constrained camera. Like it's like half normal real time RPG camera where you like spin it around the back of your character and whatnot. And it's half Resident Evil camera. And just working with that is awful.
Resident Evil camera is in like progressing on
Fixed.
rails.
Yeah, fixed cameras on like various points. So like
Oh, okay. I thought Resident Evil was it followed you.
no, in the original Resident Evil, the camera was fixed at various points. So
Yeah,
you
I know a
would
bunch of games that do that. I just have never associated it with Resident Evil because I
okay,
think the only time I've seen those games is like arcade things in like a cinema or something where it is always on rails because
right?
you've
Yeah,
basically just got the shooty thing.
yeah, yeah.
What are
The
those
the
called? Gun. Sorry.
the proper games are all just fixed camera points. So you walk into a room and it will always have that one camera, and you will walk around in the room, and then when you
Right. So
leave the room, it switches
similar
to
to
another.
10 in a lot of places then.
Does 10? Yeah, 10's got a somewhat fixed camera. It certainly doesn't
In
have like a
in some scenes it's fixed and in others it is sort of on rails where its position depends on your position but you have no other control over the camera.
right. Yeah, it's there's that, and then a lot of the movement is just really, really awkward. It's
Like what? Like it's too slow or takes a while to turn around or something or
if anything, it may actually be a little like too snappy, and the platforms are sometimes just not quite there. Like they visually extend out, and there's no clear indication that you won't make it, but you just won't make a jump a lot of the time. And you'll just have to retry it by climbing up like 5 different platforms. Just kind of like it's just kind of like a weird repeating experience. And like when it comes to repetition as well, like there's a lot of retreading each area in Kingdom Hearts. You'll have to go through each individual like area of a world like a few times,
Mhm.
and nothing's really changing except like maybe an enemy once in a while. And that's also kind of a frustration that I'm having with it. But there's still enough to keep me in it, and it's left me with the sense of conflict. Like, I don't really like the design of Kingdom Hearts 1. I think it's kind of bad, but I like enough in it that it's keeping me there. And it's keeping me like wanting to play it despite it being terrible. And I think that's really good. Mostly because I'm like into story primarily when it comes to games.
Hmm. This isn't. This is. It's kind of old enough that it doesn't have. Does it? Let me do this all. Is like one question instead of trying to do a million questions at once.
Okay.
Does it have a story only difficulty like I know a lot of newer games have?
It's got an easy mode, not a story only difficulty though, I would say.
Right. I mean, a story only is kind of just a new name for easy in a lot of cases, I think, unless they're ones that actually do skip combat.
Mm.
But I think you said to me earlier this week that you can't swap that partway through a playthrough. So if you decide I'm annoyed at the difficulty but still want the story, you can't just swap down to easy or something.
Yeah, exactly. And even if I were to swap down the difficulty, like it wouldn't really fix a lot of those platforming issues. It might fix a couple of the more frustrating bosses I've had run-ins with. I mean, there's also some just like God, there's super cool shit in there too. Like I fought Ursula from The Little Mermaid last night. And that is no joke. That boss fight was one of the coolest boss fights I've seen in a video game.
Yeah? How'd that play out?
Um Largely because it's an underwater level, it's playing out across this like big open plain with a super massive enemy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
Ursula,
cool.
she's the lady with half octopus
Yes, that is her.
tentacles, right? Yeah.
Um, it is just completely just whack. She takes up half the screen. Her facial animations are just ludicrously detailed over the course of this fight too. And as she's huge, like her face is always on the screen, really menacing. There's good music going on. It's actually the same. I learned this the other day. Same composer who did the music for Final Fantasy 15, Yoko Shimomura.
Oh, yeah.
But really great boss fights, like a really great boss fight, really cool like visual effects going on.
Mm-hmm.
Just in addition to all the cool facial animation stuff and like the sense of menace that you get off of that boss fight, it was such a cool thing to run into. And I just wish there was more stuff like that. It seems like Kingdom Hearts 1 is this realization of like, oh, maybe we can do some of this stuff. And I really hope to see it go further because I enjoyed one of the side games on the DS ages and ages ago. And now I'm enjoying this for the first time. And I really just hope that it turns up.
Well, there's Kingdom Hearts 2, right? So maybe I haven't played it, but maybe they'll go with more of what you've liked and less of what you haven't liked.
I think that is the case, just from what I have heard. And
I know as well that like older games often, if you go back and play them now, the control schemes never feel like they're handled well because sort of the way control schemes work has shifted as time goes on. So you get accustomed to, no, this is like movement should feel like this. Especially with more modern consoles having like that acceleration kind of bit, because now actually we can do animations for going from a standstill to running and stuff like that.
yeah,
Whereas older games likely won't have that. So it can feel really strange going to play an older game and being like, this doesn't feel right. But at the time it might have felt just fine, and you wouldn't have noticed because you're not comparing it to modern games. But now it's harder to hold up that feeling of movement and stuff.
yeah. Like it definitely has that thing where as you like push the controller forward a bit, it's basically instant. Like you go between
Yeah.
either walk or full run instantly.
I remember when I was playing 10 on the PS2, the first time I played it, there's this really narrow window where you walk. So if you want to walk around, which I often do, you have to be like, push the controller just enough to move, but not anymore. Whereas it's easy on a computer, you just like hold down the walk button and move.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas normally, for games with different walking speeds, I prefer controllers because that way, you can go gradually from a walk to a run and stuff. Whereas if you're playing on a computer, you'll go instantly between one and the other because, hey, are you holding shift or not?
Mm.
That's one thing I really like about more modern games is that like blending of animations to go walking, jogging, running kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But the computers just don't have a good control scheme for it if you're not using a controller. Something that plagues me is someone who likes to walk around a lot in video games, or like you're playing Fallout or something in third person, and you either walk straight or diagonal or sideways, and if you go between them, it jumps like almost immediately, and it's really jarring.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got an analog stick, it's going to be way less jarring and stuff. But yeah, without a controller, it's really hard to do that on a computer, which is normally what I'm playing on.
Hmm. Yeah, it's actually, hang on.
Yeah,
I got something I can spin off of that.
yeah.
I want to know what your like. Do you have a particular motivation for just kind of wandering around in the world? Like, is there a particular reason you do it, or is it just doing it for the sake of doing it?
I think doing it makes the world feel more real. In the same vein as I like to take narrative stuff seriously, and as part of that, I think I prefer playing these games alone, like without anyone else in the room. So if I felt easier playing Horizon on Monday and Tuesday night this week because my flatmate was playing D&D, and it's not that like I don't want their company so much as it is. If it's me alone in the world, then I'm not going to get any sort of comments or just even other noises to take me out of it, and I can treat the story seriously. Like I know it's fiction, but as though it weren't, and treat the world as though it's real, and walking around and acting like I'd expect a character might actually act
Mm.
helps keep that real. Whereas if I'm sprinting everywhere and jumping and rolling and stuff, it pulls me right out of that. I think that's the biggest part of it. It's part of me treating the story seriously. That's how I see it. That's why I try to do it. It's acting, honestly. It's trying to make sure that the character, when I'm controlling them, is consistent with the character in cutscenes and fights and stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's a really interesting way of thinking about that.
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought of it as acting until right this moment, but that seems to fit perfectly. I'm saying here, obviously it's not me acting, but it's hopefully the thought is clear.
No. I know. I I kind of agree with you as well. Like I'm thinking about why I would like to a lot of why I like to walk around the world in a video game is I just enjoy taking in all of the environments and stuff. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily anything that helps anything feel real, you know. But it's a lot of the time it's just me walking around and just trying to appreciate all the little details that have gone into the environment. And then sometimes I think it does slip into that acting, quote unquote, sense of like exploration,
mm,
especially with I guess maybe games like Dead Space. Curiously, I tend to like walk around and like be super cautious, be a bit nervous, you know.
I mean, being cautious and nervous
In Dead Space,
makes
that checks
perfect
out.
sense in Dead Space.
A little bit of that in Horizon, even Bloodborne. I just find myself kind of walking around and again, a lot of the time, just really to appreciate the beauty of all of these worlds.
Like in
It's why I
Horizon,
have a like folder on my hard drive, which is no joke, at least 30 to 40 gigabytes of nothing but screenshots. I will
I think I've
confirm
got
that number while we continue to speak.
I think I've got about 8 Horizon screenshots, but I'm happy with them all. But what I find I do is I'll walk around in settlements and I'll jog around on the roads most of the time, because that feels fitting in the world. And I don't worry about, she never gets tired because that's just a gameplay thing. That's fine.
Hmm.
Um, but like I don't sprint everywhere in towns or anything like that, unless there is like an urgent quest thing that's just happened and it makes sense to go there, even though I know there's not actually a time limit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all about that. It's about the coherency of the story and the world. So it's reminded me a bit of that thing you brought up ages back, about that Uncharted achievement. Was it Um, not it was something like narrative dissonance.
Ludonarrative dissonance.
Yeah, that's the one about how he's murdered thousands of people, but like, hey, you don't care about that in the story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit of that in Horizon as well. Where you might have killed like hundreds of bandits or something.
Yeah.
No one really mentions it, but and that's that sort of the incoherency you ignore, I guess. But it's the same kind of thing of trying to keep the story and the world coherent. It's trying to avoid any distance that might pull you out of it.
Right, yeah. By the way, I confirmed the size of that folder. It is 29.3 gigabytes
Oh,
of nothing but screenshots.
that's quite a lot.
There's a bunch of them that aren't sorted in here right now from like I have them all sorted into folders based on the game I played when I took them. So I have like I've got a ton of Night in the Woods ones that are just sitting out right now. There's a handful of near ones, and I kind of want to send you this because I want you to appreciate the environment design of near.
All 39 gigabytes.
Oh God, no! This is
Sorry, was it
2.78.
39 or 29?
29
gigabytes.
29 gigs. I'm gonna send this photo, and I'll attach it on our show notes as well. But like,
Oh, right.
just some of the shit that you can see in games is
Is that
just astonishing to me.
a floating box with arms?
It is. It's called a pod.
Okay.
The
And is that a sword stuck into the ground or something on the right?
No, that's 9S's sword, the dude character on the right.
Okay. Why is it stuck into the ground?
It's not actually. It's floating off of his back.
That's a long way off his back.
Yep.
That's like 3 steps behind
The
him.
weapons float off of 2B's back as well. The lady character in the center.
Okay.
I found. Okay, I have to mention something completely wild about that too.
Okay.
2B is voiced by an actor whose name has unfortunately, like, their actual name has slipped my mind, but they go online as Rina-chan. And my first exposure to Rina-chan was actually like fan animations that they were doing for various shows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And back then I wasn't like a huge fan of her voice. I found it kind of annoying. And now that I'm playing Nier, and like I love the voice acting that's been done for 2B, and then I learned that and I was like, holy shit. She's really stepped up her game. This is blowing my fucking mind. Anyway, it's this random aside, but I thought it was really cool that 2B's VA has come up from like doing fan projects to doing English voice acting for various like anime. She's had really big roles since those fan project days and has now landed herself the lead in Nier Automata.
That's pretty cool. Sorry.
Oh, good. It is a really cool story. I kind of wish I could hear more stuff like that on occasion, just like people who come up from fan projects.
I wonder how common it is. I mean, you do hear about some things, like, I remember reading about the Diablo 3 thing where they did the Diablo 1 20th anniversary thing, and like people who were working on it remember playing Diablo 1 when they were kids. And that's not quite the same as fan projects, but that's the same, like, being fans of the earlier work of the thing that they're then working on with really long-lasting franchises. But I wonder how common it is for that to be someone's pathway into the industry. Like, I know there are a few people who started like modding Bethesda games or something and have gone from that into actually being in the game development industry in one capacity or another.
Yeah, that's actually the story with some of the devs who are working on Sonic Mania, the upcoming retro style Sonic game.
Yeah.
Yeah, several of the team who are working on that game now are actually they actually were originally Sonic modders. They were doing like ROM hacks and stuff.
Way back when.
No, like even in more recent years, they've been doing like ROM hacks on, um, like the Sega Genesis emulator that exists on PC has official modding support.
Hmm.
And they'd been working off of that as well as like just normal emulation modding,
Yeah.
and it is completely baffling that it, it's like baffling and super cool that people have come from doing these like weird side projects and fan projects and mods all coming together into making like real actual video games.
Mm.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I actually do want to. I'm gonna keep on this
Yep.
fan project stuff and
Yep.
also just keep talking. Oh my god. Um, so we actually have some pretty cool stuff coming up. This week I did an interview with Bobby Schroeder, who uses they, them, or she, her pronouns. And Bobby and I had a discussion about their upcoming game, Super Lesbian Animal RPG, and its origins as a first draft, as a fan project. We talked about kind of the process of turning that all into something original, and it was this really great discussion. It's going to be about 80 minutes all up once we have it edited. And I'm really excited for that to be released. We're going to look at releasing that for next week's episode, which should be out on Saturday, April the 8th, 2017. And we'll have a 30-minute snippet up on the podcast. It'll just be attached to that episode. And we'll also have the full interview, all 80 minutes of it. We will have that full thing up on our Patreon, exclusive for a month. So if you would like to get early access to that bonus content, then you can go ahead and do that by subscribing to our Patreon today. You only need to pay the like $1 a month to. Everything helps and helps fund the show. Plus, again, you get that bonus early access to that super, super awesome interview.
It's a really interesting topic, eh? This whole stuff. I mean, we talked about it a little bit recently. I think that was on the show, not an off-show conversation, because there was that talk I saw online that I think, if I remember right, it was by Sasha Judd at Webstock, which was not in a gaming context, but it was about people getting tech skills through making fan projects, which is a similar sort of thing. And just how there's this whole contempt culture around basically anything that teenage girls like. So when you've got fan culture around something like One Direction or Twilight or something, people might be getting really good technical skills working on stuff around that, but then it gets completely ignored and looked down on. But there's some really cool stuff, and like you've just given a couple of examples on, people can go from these brand projects into the actual industry as well. It's a cool pathway that I reckon should be explored more, right? Because you're getting these people who are getting these skills and they might feel like there's no place for them in the industry because it's not seen as a normal pathway to get into it or something, right?
It's also like really, really interesting that you mentioned Twilight, because I actually, when I was doing that interview, I talked with Bobby about 50 Shades of Grey originally came from Twilight fanfiction. And we talked about the stigma kind of associated with that in general. And oh god, we also one of the other interesting topics that we hit was why making games with LGBT characters still feels like a risk in the year 2017. All of this it's really phenomenal conversation, and I'm excited for everybody to be able to hear it.
Are there any games you can think of where the main character fits there? I know that Overwatch has the sort of title character's not right. The character on the cover art is a lesbian. Are there any? I know there are other games that have NPCs who are LGBT, but can you think of any games where it's not self-determined, like Mass Effect, where you just get to pick, where there's a main character who is canonically gay or bi or trans?
Um,
Because I can't think of one.
well, I mean, Super Lesbian Animal RPG, I guess.
Okay, yep, that's a fair point. That is a fair
that
point.
like counts, I guess. It's
Pretty
not
relevant.
out yet, but it is happening.
I mean, also, I guess to be fair, there will be a lot of games where it doesn't come up.
Yeah, and I mean, like,
because it's not relevant, and there might be.
I fucking guarantee you, there is a ton of games like on itch.io, which would heavily feature LGBT characters, including like as main characters. But among like my library, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it doesn't really happen in AAA, does it? Like indie games, probably people creating games with characters like themselves and the people they know, I feel is much more likely to happen than games with big publishers who are like, no, like you said, it's a risk when it really shouldn't be.
Yeah,
if there should be any risk, it should just be doing it well, not doing it at all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, you were going to say something there when I interrupted you.
No. I wasn't going to say anything of consequence. Don't worry about it.
You say so.
Yeah, I really can't think of anything in like a major game space or even just among my Steam library who has like a canonically queer main character.
Yeah. I remember there was one, not a game, but a webcomic that did an interesting thing on this. I don't know if it's still going, unfortunately. It's called Supernormal Step, and slight spoilers, it gets to one point when the main character just having a conversation with someone else because things are happening between them, and they come out and they say, no, you know what, I'm asexual, and this is what that means. And like that was really interesting because it came completely out of the blue, and that's not a pun even though they have blue hair. But it was really interesting because I hadn't anticipated it, and it fits perfectly well with that character and everything like that. But it was cool because it was the main character, the one that you're following the whole time, not just some side character, which is often the case. Yeah.
I mean, even in games where like there's the option that exists to be
like Dragon Age and Mass Effect
like
and stuff,
there's
right? Yeah.
even then there's like not a lot. Like Fire Emblem, even I guess has like that's got a queer character in the sense that you can romance certain heroes, but like it's self-determined. All of the examples that I could think of are self-determined. Had you not thrown that in, I could not.
Yeah, because I mean, like it's good to be able to let when you have main character customization. It's cool to let people self-determine that when it's relevant to the game. But it's also important in cases where it's not, to not just only have straight cis people as your main characters.
Yeah.
Right? When it comes up.
And I mean, like that's kind of it. It's kind of video games. It's straight cis, primarily white dudes.
Well, even when it's not dudes.
Even when it's not dudes, they're primarily straight and white. There's not like a lot of diversity in AAA.
And there have been some good, like Moonlight and other stuff in movies have been doing a decent job of this lately. I wonder if we'll see it filter through into games, because that will be really cool.
I mean, I don't doubt that we will. We also the problem with it right now is that gaming culture is still a toxic soup.
Oh yeah.
Like I think me and Bobby also talked about this. Like gaming culture is a toxic soup still, and that's why it's a bit of why a game with LGBT characters literally at all feels like a risk. Like people were mad about the Division having a side character, which who comments like once about her wife.
That's
Yeah,
fuck people. People are awful.
man, I'm tired. I'm
Yeah.
tired of this shit.
I know there are, and minor spoilers for Horizon and Mass Effect 3, but really minor. There are NPCs in both of those games who mention being men, having husbands, and the conversation continues. No one stops and talks about that aspect of it. It's actually really interesting having that, I think, in Horizon. Because in Mass Effect, it's like, it's cool, it's just the future. Societies continue to change and societal norms have continued to change in sort of the current direction. But hey, when it's post-apocalyptic, kind of anything could happen. It's like, okay, cool. We didn't fuck that up this time. That's nice. When like society starts again, and then hey, it's okay to be gay, and then yeah, that was nice. I just found that on Monday night, I think, doing a side quest, and this guy mentioned he said he had a lover, and then ended up using he pronouns to refer to him later on, and like it just happened and kept going, and like the impression you get since you're an observer in this world and to people who've only been in this world is, oh yeah, that's a thing that happens, so what?
I just thought of a game. Oh no, it's not explicit. I was just about to say I thought of a game where there's a character who is LGBT. It was the thought I had was Assassin's Creed Syndicate for a second there, and then I was like, oh wait, no, it's just like very barely implied. You could easily miss it.
What's this?
One of the main protagonists, Jacob Fry, is like briefly implied to be bisexual.
Oh yeah, just like in a conversation with an NPC at one
In
point.
some of his reactions, actually, it's even more subtle. Some of his like attraction to specific characters. It is the most small and subtle thing, but it was like still a lot for some people.
A lot good for which people?
Oh no,
The good
for the
people or
good kind,
bad
for the good
people?
kind, for the good kind.
Oh,
Let me
good,
be clear.
good.
It was like it meant something
Yeah.
to even just see those small things, which they felt were like telltale signs. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good
I
to hear.
mean, when you're starving, if anybody throws you a bone, like
Yeah.
that's it. May is queer from Night in the Woods. May is not straight. Thank goodness.
Oh, how did you not think of that
I don't
earlier?
know how I didn't fucking think. Oh no, I know how, because I missed that scene. It's a missable
okay.
scene.
Okay, fair enough then.
But I forgot about that. Now I feel like a fool.
So, no, you remembered. You remembered about it. Is what you did.
I guess you're right. I guess, Mark. I really want to see more queerness in the in any space, really. Just give it to me, please. I am dying. Assassin's Creed Syndicate also has like a trans dude who's there, much like Dragon Age Inquisition. There's a trans character who's like pretty cool and features into the story a little bit, which is cool.
Nice.
You want to shift? Do you want to shift gears?
Yep, I'm just having a think if I know of any games to add to the list is all. But yeah, let's go.
Let's shift gears. What have you got? You had something that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I've had something that's been on my mind a little bit, and it's going to be hard to talk about without spoilers for some stories, but it is the idea of enduring mysteries. Because it's so common in games and stories in general, to be honest, for every question that's asked that's either implicit in the setting or an important part of the story or something, for every one of them to get answered. It's really common. Like you're playing a game which is set in a world that's like it's our future, but with something has happened and we don't know what, and then that what happened is going to get answered. Like is it a post-apocalypse game? You're going to find out what caused the apocalypse. That's going to be the story, and you can almost guarantee it. And like that's fine, but I love when stories have enduring mysteries. And my the example I come back to a lot, and I've actually thought of another one just today, but the one I come back to a lot is in the Dragon Age franchise. And I haven't finished Inquisition, so for all I know, this might actually come up in Inquisition, but I don't care because all through Dragon Age 1, it was just there as an enduring mystery. So in Dragon Age, there's a realm called the Fade, which magic users can go to, and it's where demons come from. If I remember correctly, sorry if I've got this wrong because I haven't played Dragon Age games in a while.
Mm.
And in the Fade, you can always see, so long as you've got line of sight, like if you're out in the open, in the distance, I think it's the Black Palace, and there's this myth around, or story around how it used to be golden and then it became tainted at some point, presumably by people going to it, I think, and you can't. It's always there, but you can't get to it. And when I first heard that, my thought was, oh, well, obviously you'll go there in the story. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought it up. It's Chekhov's gun. You don't mention it if you're not going to deal with it. But then you don't. It just stays there, mysterious and ever present. And I really liked that. It made the world feel like it was more than skin deep. When not everything revolves around the main character's story, not every question gets answered. I felt that added a lot to it. Just that little thing, just like, hey, here's something really interesting and mysterious, and then leave it at that. And like, it's not integral to the story. It's integral to the world, but it doesn't mean you get to know the answer. And that was really cool. I think the other example I thought of just today, and again, I hope I'm remembering this correctly and not getting it wrong, because I haven't read the books in a long time. But in the Dune series, essentially the first premise is okay, humans in space in the future. It's our future. It's not just some made up thing. Cool, but no one knows about Earth. And it's kind of a question. And they mention, I think, once or twice Earth that was, and they leave it at that, from what I remember. And you don't find out what happened to Earth. Something happened. Humanity spread across space, but who knows what? And that as well. It's like that's really interesting, but it's not what the story's about. So you don't get to learn the answer to the mystery. Maybe you do in the last few books I haven't read. I don't know, and it has been a while. But just it's another enduring mystery, and I really like those. And one more example, which I'll try to be very vague about since it's Chrono Trigger, so I don't want to spoil anything for you, Jess, because you still have to play it.
Yes, I do.
There is one scene which is optional. You can miss it. Shouldn't miss it. Which honestly I think is the one that makes the characters most relatable out of the whole game to me, where they are sitting around just sort of philosophizing about what might actually be going on. Why are there time travel portals around? And they talk about it and they come up with these ideas, and they've got a whole bunch of, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. You just never find out. And like, it could be this, it could be that. You can decide what you think the answer probably is, but the game doesn't tell you this is what was causing it. And it hints at a few things, and they're kind of like, it could be any of them, and they're all cool ideas, but you just don't know. And it's an enduring mystery, and I really like that. And I wish it happened more often, because so often, if some mystery gets mentioned in a book, in a game, in anything, you know it's not going to stay a mystery because they wouldn't have mentioned it otherwise. I don't like that sort of gaming a story, when they've mentioned it, so it must be important. I can understand why it can help tell a compelling story, and I'm not saying it should never be like done. And of course, in movies and stuff where it's quite restricted in terms of time, it makes sense to not add in a whole bunch of stuff that just is sort of irrelevant. Excuse me. But still, I really like it when they come up, and I wish they happened more, because it feels like a shame when I can see something really mysterious and know I'm going to know like the answer to this question because otherwise the question wouldn't have been asked. You know?
Hmm. I want to build off of that too with something that I really like in storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, I rewatched The Incredibles. You familiar?
Okay, I don't know if I've ever watched that, but I know what it is.
Okay. Um,
I don't mind
I mean,
spoilers.
I'm not going to spoil anything here for The Incredibles. Uh,
Okay.
but as I was watching it, I realized it had a similarity to another movie which I wouldn't have expected, and to a couple of different movies I wouldn't have expected. The first is John Wick, and the second is Looper. Have you seen either of those films?
I've seen Looper. I've not seen John Wick.
Okay.
Looper is the one with Bruce Willis.
With Bruce Willis, who is inexplicably what Joseph Gordon-Levitt will look like when he's older.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't remember the younger guys.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember because I'm actually
I'm bad with
I'm a
names.
big fan of Gordon-Levitt. So hey,
Okay.
but one of the things that the thing that all of those movies have in common that I thought about was all of them as they go. Um, it's clear that there's this like deep underlayer of the world which has been developed out, and because the characters who you are like seeing on the screen are in a pre-established role, that underlayer becomes so much more interesting because as they like touch on parts of the that underlayer, like the bits of the lore begin to come out just from them like acknowledging, oh yeah, this hotel that I like go to, there's these coins that I can give them and they'll provide special services for me. Whatever. Stuff like that. Or even just like the world building details and Looper surrounding like the mob and stuff like that. I really, really am fascinated by those. And games don't explore that space a lot. They don't tend to deal with pre-established characters. And in fact,
It can.
the first example I could think of was The Witcher 3, where you are like immediately thrust into like a world in which people know who you are, even though you may not. Like you, the player, may never have met them. You, the character, has many, many times. They know exactly what's up. Um, they have like an established relationship with this person. They have an established thing that they do, established behaviors. All of this stuff is it's so fucking cool to actually see. And it feels like a rarity of sorts in games. I'm curious what your thoughts on that would be.
This actually comes up a lot in D&D, where you have the separation between player knowledge and character knowledge. Right, so the player has read the monster manual and they know that this monster's weak to fire. The character doesn't know that, but the character does know what the next country over is called, and the player might not. I think it's a thing that's a lot easier to do in media that's consumed passively. Well, that's probably not the best way to put it, but like books and movies, you don't control what the characters do, so their knowledge can come into play just fine in the story. That's easy. In a thing where you control them, like a video game, it's harder, right? Because you're controlling the action, you don't have their knowledge, so it can be a harder thing for that to influence the story a lot. It often comes through NPCs. You'll find a lot in both in video games, I find, and in role-playing games. It's quite common to start out at a point where you are a stranger in a strange land, so that to start with character knowledge and player knowledge, where it's important, lines up. So you've got things like Half-Life 2, right? Where you've just essentially come out of hibernation. You're a stranger in a strange land. The player doesn't know what's going on, but it's okay because neither does the character. It's rare that you will be someone who is going to their home, which is unfamiliar to a Western audience, and just know what's going on. It's like Far Cry 4, right? They're going home, but the main character is Americanized, so that the mainly American audience will know what's going on. It's hard in a story like that to have the character's knowledge be an important part of the story driver without having a lot of cutscenes or something like that, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's like a fine approach to it. I think
Oh yeah, I love cutscenes.
I thought of a couple more examples as soon as you mentioned that sort of stuff. Like I thought of Sleeping Dogs. Was one of the first ones I thought about.
Yeah.
I also just thought about L.A. Noire again.
Yeah, for sure. But the Stranger in a Strange Land thing, that comes up a lot, right? Like Final Fantasy X is another one. You're a stranger in a strange land.
Kingdom Hearts is
it's
too,
really common
as well.
Pretty much all of the Elder Scrolls games, when you start off as a prisoner,
Yep.
as like a running gag kind of thing. Well, not a gag, but theme.
Fallout 4 does a little bit of this pre-established character stuff.
A little bit, but all the Fallout games are you leaving a vault into the wasteland that you've never been
Yeah,
in
but
before.
Fallout 4 has that setting of has the setting of Boston, in which your character was familiar with before events preceding the vault happened.
It's quite nice how they let you have a passing familiarity with Sanctuary to start with, so it does feel a little bit like coming home because you've been there before. That's a nice touch. But yeah, you the player, probably, I don't know if it's a real place or not, doesn't know about the little block down the street that the character can mention, because they know about it if you talk to your robot butler the right way.
God, shit like that's really cool.
But yeah, not Fallout, sorry. Witcher 3 is a good example, I think, for there being a lot of character knowledge in the main character.
Yeah.
Because Geralt knows, like, he hunts monsters for a profession, like, he knows all this shit about them that you, the player,
Yeah, exactly. Like, not only does he just, like, know all the shit about all the monsters, he knows all the shit about all the people. He knows what's up with the kings. He knows what's up with, like, the central, like, sorcerer organization. He knows what's up with all these towns. What's going on with this empire? Why are they waging war?
Yeah, there's a lot of games with some mechanic that's supposed to sort of give the player access to the character's intuition, and I often find they're really clunky. Things like Eagle Vision and
I was gonna say Eagle Vision
and Witcher Vision
and
or Witcher Senses or whatever
and
it is.
the detective stuff in the Batman Arkham games.
At least in that case, it has an in-world explanation where he just has like a visor overlay kind of thing. That I think.
I mean, The Witcher has that
and
too.
And then he just gives exposition. But no, The Witcher has like it is an overlay for the player's benefit only, because the character just sees these things.
Yeah, but
the player and character seeing different things.
No, the character is implied to see the same things too. Like, the entire premise of that mechanic existing is that Witchers, because of all of the like mutations that they have to undergo, can actually see that.
The glowing red footprints?
Yeah.
I thought it was a matter of Geralt is really good at tracking. Here's how the player can tap into that without also being really good at tracking. That was always my understanding of it.
Yeah, I think my understanding of that is just that it's a result of the mutations that they can see, like, anomalies in the world, essentially.
Yeah, but I don't know if it would canonically glow for Geralt.
With scents and stuff, it might, like following scent trails. I feel like that might be explained by the lore.
You think he sees a glowing trail?
Yes, I do. That's my.
I wouldn't interpret it that way. I feel like it's just for the player's benefit. And, like, I don't know how else it could be done, honestly. But it's hard to give someone access to someone else's intuition. It's just hard.
Yeah. I mean, like, detective stuff in Arkham, like, technically is the in-world explanation of it. It's just part of the cowl.
Yeah.
How the cowl can track all of that is beyond me, but it's
science fiction magic.
It is magic. It doesn't need to be explained for the benefit of us. It's just a bit of a weird mechanic. I going back to what we were originally discussing, though, I want to see more games where we have, like, established characters who we jump in midway through their lives and not, like, the same, like, rags to riches shit we're used to seeing constantly in games. I want to see.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see that happen as well in less familiar
ways,
circumstances. Yeah. And I mean, like, that does happen in a bunch of games. Like, that's something that happens in Horizon.
Oh yeah.
I think. Like you're chucked into the role of a character who is has an established life in this way with unfamiliar ways, but you're also a stranger in a strange land because you've been an outcast all your life, so you haven't been party to the culture of your tribe.
Yeah.
So you're still experiencing that for the first time, like the player is. So there's an aspect of both there, and like part of it, I don't want to say it's necessary, but it is really helpful for bringing the player knowledge up to character knowledge. But it's so ubiquitous. It's really nice and refreshing when you see it just not happen, and you see the character already has that knowledge.
Hmm.
It'd be like the difference between playing Aloy and playing Rost, because you feel like there's so many questions you could ask him at the start of the game, and he'd know the answer when Aloy wouldn't. But you're playing with the person who doesn't have the answers.
I wonder how it would have been for people who played Deus Ex Mankind Divided, not having played Human Revolution as well, because by that point...
I'm assuming Human Revolution is the first one, and
you've gotten that right this time.
Only because of the way you just talked about it, because I actually thought it was the other way around.
Fair enough. That, so. But by Mankind Divided, Adam Jensen is an established character. So people who hadn't played Human Revolution, I wonder how they felt stepping into those shoes.
My brother has been playing through the Mass Effect trilogy again before Andromeda. I know the story doesn't carry on, but it's interesting because we've talked about it a little bit, and remembering some of the characters who you see in Mass Effect 3, who you had seen in Mass Effect 1, and he'd imported his save, which was Mass Effect 2, but not Mass Effect 1, but he'd played Mass Effect 1 and made these choices. So Shepard would meet someone like for the first time, and people would be like, "No, you've met, like you killed this person," or something. But it hadn't actually happened. Or I remember playing Mass Effect 3 when someone, a Batarian, one of the alien races, if you haven't played it, shows up, and Shepard recognizes them, and I'm like, "Who the hell is that? I can't tell Batarians apart. I'm sorry." And it was someone from like what I found to be an unmemorable DLC from Mass Effect 1. And like I don't remember their name or anything. This DLC introduced Batarians for the first time. They didn't exist in Mass Effect 1 aside from this DLC. But like Shepard remembers exactly who they were and what they did, and I'm like, how? I don't remember, like, oh, whatever. But it was just kind of interesting. But like that was an example of an established character in the world who knows stuff that I don't, even if I should have known it.
And now you have me thinking of this like idea of player memory versus character memory.
Characters are so much better at remembering names.
Thank God for that, honestly. But
although I mean, Aloy seems to be telepathic because you can go up to someone you've never talked to, and it'll say, "Speak to so and so," and it's like, "Oh, that's their name, I guess."
I'm gonna blame the focus for that.
Yep, it can read their minds and tell you.
I will just explain that with the in-game item, which conveniently identifies literally everything. I mean, it does the robots.
Yeah. A lot of games do that, though. It's something that I would like to see this in a game where you've got that like dialogue, talk to someone, that tells you their name, but it doesn't tell you their name until they've actually been introduced. That'd be cool.
I mean,
anyway, sorry, you were going to say
RPGs and stuff tend to do that a lot more than, I should say more text-heavy RPGs tend to do that more than like a lot of other games. Like you'll often be talking to people who just have like question mark as their name, especially if they are like a central character who will be about to join you, and then you'll find out their name and it'll change over.
Really? I often have found that you only get something like that if it's like an unseen person talking.
I know that there's like a handful of games that I have seen which do that. I believe Fire Emblem does it at a few points.
Okay, yeah, I can see Fire Emblem.
Disgaea does something fun with that, actually, that I've seen. At one point in the Disgaea story, the protagonist runs into a character who they find particularly annoying, and they say, "Who gives a damn about you? Your new name is Mid-Boss." And then their nameplate changes to say Mid-Boss.
Reminds me of in Borderlands 2 when Claptrap is like telling you about all these things you have to do to go on this big quest to get your stash or something, and the objectives actually pop up, and it's like ridiculous things like
Oh
go
no, I
this
remember that
go
exact
journey. And
quest.
there was another one as well where you're fighting a certain monster. I can't remember what they're called, but the guy's trying to think of a better name. The
You're
guy who gave you the
right.
quest,
It just
and he
changed.
gets pissed off, and he's just like, "Fuck it, they're called Bonafarts now. Kill 10 Bonafarts," and the objective changes to kill 10 Bonafarts. And when you're fighting them, the thing that pops up is like Bonafart level
Yeah,
10.
I do remember that. Thank you, Borderlands.
Yeah, that was great. That was really
It's-
good. Borderlands has got some top notch.
I mean, sure, if you want to like go that route, sure.
No, but like incorporating that into the UI.
Yeah,
I
okay,
really like
that
was
bit
great.
itself is genius. I mean, like Bonafart is not like the
No,
it
I
is
know.
not the
I know.
pinnacle of writing here.
No, but the fact that it's like, oh, okay, now when I fight them, it actually says that.
Yeah,
in the UI.
I think
Like,
I think I
it's-
had a
yeah.
chuckle at that too. I was just expecting them to like always just be bullymongs, which is just
That's
it's a
it,
bad
yes.
name. I remember like I have such vivid fucking memories of this quest because
Yeah,
it
but like I
stands
think
out
it's
because
meant
it's
to be
so
a bad
good.
name. Yeah,
Man.
yeah.
There was like a quest. I remember it now as well. There's a quest in. I want to talk about two really quick. There's a quest in which like there's an annoying dude in town, and you just blow up his house with a moon
What?
cannon.
Jesus.
Like they're like saying, "Oh, we're gonna test out the defense systems." Like it's this one dude who's like really annoying to this one other character. So she gives you a set of coordinates. It's his house. You detonate it off of the map. It is gone, and then she puts the shields up and says, "Okay, test it now." The other one is Face McShooty.
What?
There's a quest in Borderlands 2 with a character who is named Face McShooty. You accept a quest from him, and it's just to shoot him in the face. If you shoot him in the face, you complete the quest.
Oh, I think I remember that one.
Like, honestly, as much as Borderlands has some, like, dated memes and garbage kind of hanging out in there, it's also got really weirdly clever quests and quests that, like, still stand out in my mind. Like, even Face McShooty, like, as dumb and throwaway of a quest as that is, it still sticks out, mostly because of how, like, dumb and, like, silly it is.
One thing I remember about it as well is some of the dialogue is actually realistic. Like you don't really see it in games. Like, hey, someone just called the villain an asshole. Like that happened, but you don't normally see that in games. People don't normally do that. I find.
No, mostly because most of the time the villain doesn't like talk back. They're just like,
No, I think they were just talking about the villain, and they called him, or like the villain did something over there, and someone like talked about them being an asshole. I think, but I suppose actually part of the reason why I don't really hear that might be because a lot of the games I play are in fantasy settings where they've got different insults than asshole.
right.
But still.
I mean, all right. Well, I think that is gonna wrap up the show for this week. Wow, there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about this week. I will keep it brief. Patreon. First of all, we actually have something important to announce about that. We have our first patron to actually thank at the end of the show. Oh my god. Thank you very much to Ash Yee for supporting the show. If you'd like to support the show
Thank you.
as well, you can do so by going to what URL, Mark?
Oh god, what is the URL? I'm gonna guess here because I haven't memorized. Is it patreon.com/PauseCast?
That is indeed what it is.
Wow, that's so easy. I actually didn't know that. This isn't a goof. I didn't remember it.
I mean, we use the same thing for everything, so it's easy for
Yeah.
us to be found. Yeah, thank you to Ashi for being a patron of the show. Let's see, coming up for our patrons as well. We've got that interview that I mentioned earlier in the episode and that will be exclusive to patrons for a month. And then as well, we have a spoiler cast upcoming for Night in the Woods. I'm going to be recording that on April the 5th, and I'm going to be doing that with Sid from the I'm Just Playing podcast. So we'll be having Sid back. We will be doing that as a bonus, and that'll be available exclusive to patrons for 2 weeks. It's a little bit less significant than the interview that I've got with Bobby Schroeder, which is fantastic. I'm so excited for you guys to hear that. So that's what's up for our patrons. You also get access to really, really detailed show notes, which talk about like every single game that we talked about in the week. I actually put all of that together. It's really good. You also, the bonus content, you get a shout out from us every week, like a thank you, and we'll do like a custom one once a month for our first few patrons as well. So hey, go check out our Patreon. Give us some support if you can. We also have all kinds of stuff going on with our email. If you want to email us, pausecastshow@gmail.com. If you email us, you get free video games. Not hard. We have XCOM 2, Dragon's Dogma, a ton of games to just give you.
Moon Hunters, yeah.
So if you want free video games, come get some. Pausecastshow@gmail.com. We're on Twitter. Where are we on Twitter?
I'm going to guess. No, I should know this one. At PauseCast Show.
Yep. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/PauseCastShow. Anything else? I think that's everything.
Music.
You are right. Spot on. Thank you very much to Leon for the use of our theme song, Honey Milk Island. You can find Honey Milk Island on SoundCloud and download it for free by going to soundcloud.com/LEYAWN. Give Leon some support. They're doing some great music. Mark, you're on the internet.
Oh yeah, I am, aren't I?
It's weird how you exist on the internet at the same time as I exist on the internet, and occasionally we talk into a program which is connected to the internet, and we do this show.
We're not the same person, turns out.
You are on the internet, though.
I'm on Twitter at Honest Universe, and I blog as well, though not about video games, at honestuniverse.com.
You can find me. You can find me on Twitter at CockatielCutie, and you can find me on the internet in general at bird.school. You were going to say something, and I feel like I rudely interrupted you.
No, I was going to say.
Okay,
so
cool.
It's good.
Crushed
it's
it.
Good.
Is that everything? Did we cover everything?
I think that's everything.
Oh my god! Wow. I've got to.
Fire exits are over that way.
Yep, fire exits are that way. Emergency, don't sit in the emergency exit door if you are not prepared to open it. If you
count the rows of seats to the nearest.
Yeah, if you need to switch seats because you will not be able to operate the emergency exit, please let a flight attendant know, and they'll be with you shortly. All right.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for joining us, as always, and we will see you next week.
Bye.